Hey guys, what's up? This is Ben Golliver for SB Nation. We're here to talk about some of the beefiest first-round playoff matchups in the NBA that I can remember in years, frankly. It seems like everybody's talking trash. Everybody's got a problem with everybody over the last week, and that goes for both conferences. Out west, you've got a very tense series between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets, and in the Eastern Conference, of course, those two old hated rivals, New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics. Let's start out west, where things looked like they were headed towards a sweep for the Oklahoma City Thunder right up until Russell Westbrook was lost to a season-ending knee injury that required surgery. Now, this really came out of nowhere. The Thunder haven't been a team that's dealt with a ton of adversity, and I actually thought they dealt with the initial news, that initial bad news, which could really throw you for a loop. I thought they dealt with that okay. They just haven't really handled everything after that very well. They maintained their composure immediately after the news came down. They didn't feel sorry for themselves. They tried not to hang their heads. Obviously, it's a huge emotional blow to lose a guy like Westbrook, who's your heart and soul of your team. They tried to keep it together very well. The problem is, once they got on the basketball court, their offense was just totally different. You could tell immediately they just weren't the same team. This was a team that had one of the best offenses in the league, number 2 overall, actually, in offensive efficiency. So they had some offense to spare in losing Russell Westbrook. But the remaining players, they just don't have it, and they've got a lot of question marks. You look up and down the roster, starting with Kevin Martin, who's just been a complete dud in this playoff series. He shot 1 for 10 in the last game, Game 5, lost to the Houston Rockets, and it's just been ugly. He's been bad all series long. You've got Thabo Sefolosha, who's supposed to be sort of a floor-stretching shooter guy, an outlet option for you. He hasn't really done it. Reggie Jackson's performed fairly admirably in Russell Westbrook's absence, but he doesn't have that outside shot. And he's not keeping defenses truly honest, and that means basically everybody's loading up on Kevin Durant. He's got to do it 1-on-2, sometimes 1-on-3, sometimes 1-on-4, and occasionally 1-on-5. And that's sort of life now for Oklahoma City, is trying to find ways to make Kevin Durant's life a little bit easier on offense so that he's capable of having those big scoring nights, because he really has to carry the load. They just don't have that number 2 option right now. A guy like Serge Ibaka isn't going to be that guy for you on a night-to-night basis, especially if they do advance and have to play against some tougher defenses like, say, the Memphis Grizzlies or the San Antonio Spurs. So to me, the Thunder, who came in looking like maybe one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the playoffs over the course of the regular season, now look like a team that's really going to be fighting for its life. I still like them to advance. They hold a 3-2 series lead right now over Houston. They've been going back and forth with Patrick Beverley in terms of the beef factor I mentioned earlier. They're very upset about what he did to help injure Westbrook on that play where he's trying to steal the ball as Westbrook's calling timeout. They've tried to pull that same stunt back on him multiple times. They've got him frustrated. He got a technical foul in Game 5 because they tried to do it. They tried to lay him out with some hard picks in Game 3. I mean, they've really thrown the whole kitchen caboodle at him, and he's handled it okay, and I think he's responded fairly well. There was death threats. A ball boy was involved in threatening his life on Twitter. I mean, it's been a very, very strange series out west, and ultimately, you hope that Kevin Durant can kind of crystallize things for the Thunder, pull them back together, and get the one win they do need here in either Game 6 or Game 7. They are catching a break in Game 6. It sounds like James Harden, who was excellent in Game 5, is going to have strep throat, so he's kind of playing through a strange injury there. And hopefully they'll be able to, if you're the Thunder fan, hopefully you're able to get that one win you do need and kind of advance on, where you're going to either face the Clippers or it could be the Grizzlies, who hold a 3-2 series lead as well. Out east, I mean, it's even crazier. If you thought the back and forth over a knee injury, a kind of a fluke play between Beverley and Westbrook was bad, I mean, where do you even begin? I mean, we could start with Lala Vasquez taking a shot at Jordan Crawford, saying that, that's why he's a bench player after Crawford tried to talk trash to Carmelo Anthony following Game 5. Celtics win in Madison Square Garden. That prompted Raymond Felton to come to Anthony's defense. It prompted all sorts of people to jump in between the two teams and separate their players. It prompted Doc Rivers to point at Fab Melo and tell him to get into the locker room. Which he probably has been wanting to do that all season long. It probably isn't the first time he's done that this season. You had all sorts of beef in that Game 5 scene, and really a lot of it traced back to some comments made by J.R. Smith and Kenyon Martin that frankly were just disrespectful and totally unnecessary. J.R. Smith's taking a shot at Jason Terry after he elbowed him, got himself ejected and suspended for that elbow, basically saying he's pretending not to know who Jason Terry is. You've got Kenyon Martin making these jokes about how all the Knicks should wear all black clothing because it's funeral colors. I mean, what a dumb thing to say, especially after the tragedy in Boston. I mean, why would you ever come up with that concept, let alone get your teammates to go along with it? It's just not the kind of thing that championship teams do. It's just so much distraction, so much eye off the ball, if you will, in terms of trying to close out a series that they had total command in. And on the court, I mean, the Knicks do kind of seem like a distracted team. They're not moving the ball very well. They're not sharing it like they, do when they're playing their best basketball, moving that ball around the perimeter quickly. They haven't been doing that very much. Carmelo Anthony's been going a lot of, isolation plays that haven't been working out very well because he's not shooting great these last couple of games. So ultimately, they really just got to refocus everything. And I think this goes back to Mike Woodson. I thought Woodson was absolutely a very strong candidate for Coach of the Year. He was actually my pick. It's going to be on him to get all these guys in line for one more win, put the Celtics back, where we thought they would be out of the postseason after a very slow start to this series for Boston. And they've really turned it around, and they're just going to keep hoping and keep digging and go into those short rotations that Doc Rivers used and hope they can spring a couple more upsets here. Personally, just like out west, I still like the Knicks' chances here to pull out one win in the next 2 games, but I could easily see this going back to New York for Game 7, where the pressure is going to mount, because this is really a storybook season for the Knicks, one of their best seasons in recent memory. If they go home here without a series victory again, I think all hell is going to break loose from the tabloids, and I think it would actually be warranted given how well they played early this series and also how ridiculous they acted off the court over the course of the last couple games.